Okay, this is your main breaker right here for the whole building. If I kill this right now, your generator's gonna start though. Okay? But this is your main power coming in from the transformer that's out on in the cubby hole out here. Comes into here. This is a meter cabinet. This is all 600 volts. Same as this is all 600 volts. So if you look here, there's pump 7 and 8, which I'm gonna ask you, do you know where 7 and 8's at? No? 7/8's down in the sprinkler room. You know, for the chiller, there's two pumps there on speed drives. That's pump 7 and 8, which are 600 volts. Okay, that's them two there. Then there's your chiller. Chiller's outside there, and that was one we just put in the transformer. Is this guy right here? This big guy right here. And then the other one, which is panel M1, which is the panel in the boiler room that we were in at before. Okay, so that's all 600, all 600. So when it comes in here, your 600 comes in here, gets tied into this splitter, which is splitter is a bus bar splitter, in case anybody's ever wondering. Some people saw splitters before where you bug on wires, but this is bus bar. So there's a bus bar for each section of this. And that comes into here, and that's these two big pipes. Remember I showed you out there? Yeah. That's your power going out to that transfer switch. This disconnect here is for the kitchen panel A2. Okay? Reason why that's on this splitter, because if the power goes out, A2 is not on the generator. Okay? So then on the reverse of this, if you can swing on this side of me. So on the reverse of that, like I said, your power comes back into here. So this is your main panel DP. So when you look at DP, you got a 200 amp breaker, A1. 200 amp breaker, B1. And they're located where?
First floor.
First floor. B2, this is A2A, which was got the red one, which is reset, but we'll come back to that one. A3, B3, A4, B4. So that's all your main panels. Reason why you don't see A2 here, because it's out of that disconnect.
Yeah.
Okay. All the rest of these single ones, which I got to get a lamp made up for that, is stuff that they picked up out of this panel, which are either 347 or 208, sorry, 208, but they just use these bigger breakers. This big breaker here, it's probably expensive as anything, but it's the same as that little breaker up in the little panels. It's just that there was no room for a sub panel here. So these bigger breakers are same as your 15 amp or 20 amp breaker. Okay. Fire pump, jockey pump, air compressor, plugs, shunt trip. That shunt trip is this breaker here, which we'll go through. Exits, generator heater, outside lights, block heater, electric room fan, oil skid, which is right below us here. The vast control panel that's below us here too. HRV unit, which is in there. A big HRV unit in the sprinkler room. And all the rest of these panels. So this one that got red tape on it, this is the one that's always giving us not headaches, but this is the one that's tripping. And there's a reason why it's tripping. There's a fire alarm relay here. Anything to do with fire alarm, it's gonna trip it. I don't care. If you get an alarm, it's gonna trip it. And when that relay's fixed in that cabinet right there, anytime that starts, it's gonna trip it. 9 times out of 10 is only gonna be on the check on the boiler, the generator start up once a month on the Wednesday. It's going to trip that breaker for an hour because you can't reset it once it's tripped, once we get this working. Once it's tripped, you can't reset it on the generator. Till the generator goes back to normal state. Then you come in here, reset this breaker, and our kitchen's back to normal. Any other time would be for fire alarm, and I know we had a couple of ones that nobody knew that there was a fire alarm trouble in, but down the road in the future, if any fire alarm stuff comes up, that's why it trips it out. Okay.
So when she's looking for something that's tripping the kitchen, going to 2A2 isn't necessarily going to fix it.
This is only for the hood, the stuff underneath the hood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So say tomorrow morning the generator's running, and she wants to cook something in the kitchen. She's not. because panel A2 is off till the power comes back on. So that's the reason why we had to put this in here, because if not, that panel would have had to come out of this disconnect,
Right.
and we couldn't do that at the time because it wasn't piped that way.
Right.
This was just a code change that had to go in. That panel was totally extra from the job. It wasn't supposed to be in there.
Okay.
So when we put that in there, we had to make sure it went off on fire alarm and generator. Because the problem is, and we add it up, and I don't do the math, but you don't do straight math when you're doing electrical. You got 200 amps is 4, 6, 5, 7, 850, 9, 950 plus your 15s. If you calculate all that up, it could be 9,000 amps. We only have a 600 amp service. They don't do a load of a building when they add up like a house building. So what happens, they add up all the load and what potential's out there to be working, and they base it on that 200 amps over there, which that's all we got. We don't have no threshold for any more. So if they put the kitchen on it, it would have burned up the generator. Right? That was the only downfall of keeping that generator.
Cheech,
Yep.
is the elevator on the generator?
No. See, this is where I was saying the elevator comes out of the panel M1,
Yeah.
which goes to that panel that's down in the boiler room. So when we lose power, that panel down there
She's down.
is dead. Okay?
Yeah.
So that'd be all your boilers. Boilers?
Elevator, kitchen.
Not all your boilers, though. All your pumps. Not all the pumps, though, either, because you have there's some the burners and everything is only 110, which would be beyond the controls. You know what I mean? It will be beyond your 110.
Okay.
But to run the pumps to drive all the heat out to the building, I would have to look into the schematics of that. Like, I'm not the plumber, but
Yeah, my concern is not that one. My concern is the elevator.
no, elevator's not. Somebody asked me that. Somebody called me that, and I said
Well,
no.
we had a person stop.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that.
Right?
We talked about that, which makes sense. It done what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
She had to make a call, and that person knew that she was in the elevator. And like I said, there should be, when whoever's talking to the elevator guys come down to do training. If worst case scenario, they would have sent somebody, if she had been stuck in there for a couple of hours, they would have released it down to the bottom floor, right?
Yes, if they can get it.
Yes, but
Because I've had times where I had to wait 4 hours for it.
yeah, like I was stuck in an elevator up at the regional hospital for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I used the phone. I was only by myself there too.
Yeah,
And I said,
Yeah, because like Tyson only has 3 technicians on the
Yep,
island, right?
yep.
If they're all up in
but there is one that he lives on the island now though.
AJ McCarron.
Yes, he's from North Side.
Right.
Yep.
But the day I called him,
Yeah,
he was in Shed and the other 2 guys were in Antigonish.
yeah.
Right? So,
So they should be able to give you like something in maintenance there, emergency way to get,
and that's the conversation we're going to have with Tyson.
because there got to be release there to bring that down. There's got to
There
be
is.
hydraulic release. There got to be.
Yeah, there's not like in our other.
But I think you would have
All
to.
the
I think
roads.
you would have to kill the power. Just make sure it doesn't come back on while you're doing emergency release. Don't hold me to this, but because
No.
if you were doing emergency release and then the power came back on,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, no, it's a conversation
Yeah.
we'll have with Tyson.
that's the reason why the generator is not now, and the other reason why it's not 110 or 240 or 208. The amperage goes way up on 208 for an elevator, 600 volts. It would have to be like. We done it out. Remember, to us is only that we ran into a problem with the same thing. It was spec'd as a 600 volt generator, and when the generator came in, it was 208,
Right.
which is this power. Okay. The breaker wasn't big enough, right? It needed like 200 amps.
Okay.
See, the breaker that's feeding that one down there right now is only like a 70 amp breaker on 600. Once you swap over, it's like 300 amps. So then if you wanted it on generator, the only thing that could probably work off of that would be
The elevator.
the elevator.